шановні колеги, ми
Esteemed colleagues, we are going to continue our work on our topic. Actually, our Ukrainian country's cases in Russia, how the families of the victims of human trafficking should act. Our guest is Mariya Tomak, coordinator of Media Initiative for Human Rights, and Koval, lawyer of the Center for Strategic Affairs of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights, and relatives of victims. You are welcome to this podium. Ms. Mariya, you have the floor. Good afternoon. We do not have too many people in our audience today, but nevertheless, usually we were used to talk about the political prisoners on the territory of Russian Federation. We have a different topic, which is used by the Russian Federation for the political speculation, but the nature behind that is different. Most of all, it's a social base. That's why present here is the Deputy Minister of Social Policy, Natalia Fedorovich. We do appreciate her coming today. Also, would like to say a few things, first and foremost, about the fact that those persons are under control of the Russian Federation, and relatively, well, actually, some of the relatives of the political prisoners had a chance to talk to his son recently, and he can state let's say, the very bad attitude toward the Ukrainian citizens of the territory of the Russian Federation, especially in the prisons, in jails, and very often they find themselves in a solitary cell. And of course, Ukraine, once I repeat myself, they doesn't have any influence, direct influence on those people, and those who detain them and take them as prisoners, hold them as prisoners, but anyway, Ukrainian government has some commitments to exercise. We are in constant contact with the Minister of Justice, General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine, those offices which are first and foremost responsible for the destinies of the citizens which fell victims to the human trafficking schemes and procedures, especially those who have been charged or sentenced or under investigation according to the Article 28 for drug trafficking. Sometimes they actually criminate them, other article for the organization of the criminal organization, which threatens them, is fraught for them with 20 years of imprisonment, where they're very lengthy terms to serve. Well, also, again, if you're talking about very, very lengthy terms for the political prisoners, here we are talking about different levels. We are saying that many of those people are actually suffered as a result of the improper attitudes. We understand that on the part of the law enforcement bodies, we can see that kind of attitude, very specific, very cautious treatment of this topic or attitude to this topic, and they say that not all of the persons have been charged with this Article 28, not all of them suffered or fell victim of the improper attitudes. Some of them are involved in the illegal drug trafficking in Russia, but anyway, from point of view of the humanistic point of view and the actual protection of the human rights, we have to understand and to make sure we know who of them are really victims who fell to this kind of human trafficking and who actually are the real criminals, and who of them were actually became victim of the special pressure exerted on them, and they became victims of this kind of improper behavior on the part of the prosecutors officers. We are talking about those persons about whom we have the information about their coercion to believe, to actually to admit that they committed some crime. We have some criminal proceedings according to Article 39. In Dnipro, there were several persons who were detained. Also, some in the Solomensky district city court, and they have not been, let's say, considered to be the victims because the law enforcement bodies do not know how to consider them or to admit them as those who suffered as a proper detained because there is no information about that. So this is kind of a situation between Russia and Ukraine. This kind of misunderstanding or unclear situation which can be used by Ukraine, and there are special international means and procedures can be used for the benefit of our citizens. In the second problem, we still do not have understanding in which way or what could be the strategy on the part of the government of Ukraine in order to return and recognize those persons as the victims, as those who suffered, and how to provide rehabilitation to those persons. We would not go now into some details because it would be strategically improper to publicize this information, but still there is no strategy of this kind, but we are still working on trying to find this strategy, and this is within the jurisdiction and competence of the Minister of Justice. That's what we believe. And there is another problematic direction of the activities, what could be the tactics and strategy regarding those people to recognize them as the victims with the subsequent rehabilitation of their names, etc. I would like to mention that there are some relatives of some of those persons who suffered such situation, and I would like also to say that we are going to continue to involve MPs of Ukraine into this kind of advocacy procedures, and there was a meeting which was attended by Irina Lutsenko, who's MP. She was very emotional in her speech, and actually in some episodes she admitted the lack of activities on the part of the law enforcement bodies, and I believe we are going to continue to use the assistance of the MPs of Ukraine in order to somehow to impact or affect this situation. Now I would like to turn the mic to Natalia Fedorovich. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity given to me to address you today. I would like to thank my colleagues from the NGOs for the fact that they are dealing with this problem on such a serious professional level. And of course, I'm talking about the absolutely humane level. If we are talking about those problems, we are going to consider today. In accordance with the practice, international practice, in fact, a person is recognized to be a victim of the human trafficking. This person becomes a part of the not only national but international programs, and the international bodies have to protect this person against some kind of bad consequences. As a result of the activities in Ukraine, we managed to return 15 Ukrainian citizens who suffered as the victims of human trafficking. International, from Cyprus, from Jordan, from Cyprus, Poland, etc. As at present, if you're talking, 15 citizens of Ukraine find themselves in the special detention centers in the territories of other countries, and now we're working to return those persons back to Ukraine. A very serious problem, which was mentioned a few minutes ago by my colleague, and which is very important to us. First of all, we have to do everything possible for our persons not to find themselves under a situation when they are being used the way they described my colleague, and not to be involved in some kind of illegal actions, in particular the drug trafficking. And that's why, once again, we address our residents of Ukraine. Please be careful and vigilant when you accept proposals for employment. First of all, if you're talking about some kind of the courier or let's say the messengers activities, because we have to take into consideration the general political situation, because we know a lot of facts when citizens of Ukraine are charged and accused of the actions they have never committed, and there's another things which is associated with impossibility to defend the rights of the citizens of Ukraine under such situations. Another thing which I would like to voice in our turn, we would like to do everything possible in order to draw the attention of the international community to such problems and to use all the available international instruments in order to defend and protect the rights of the citizens of Ukraine to a maximum extent. As for this specific situation, together with the families of those persons who suffered such injustice, together with NGOs, some of the representatives of which are present here today, we are going to do everything possible for those people who are detained in the territory of Russian Federation today, in order to change the, let's say, the qualification, legal qualification of their cases when those people were illegally charged with some acts they never committed, and in relation to those people, they have to be recognized as the persons who suffered as a result of the human trafficking. It's very difficult to do today, but we are working on those issues. And yesterday they mentioned that we actually had gathered a kind of interdepartmental or interagency working meeting, and it was very important that we managed to involve MPs, in particular Rio Lutsenko is one of the parliamentarians of Ukraine, MP, and I really believe that by pooling our efforts, we will manage to defend and protect the rights and interests of our citizens. Thank you. Thank you. The floor is given to Ina Koval. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon. I would like to tell you about the actions of the Helsinki group in Kiev and our international media group, what has to be done by the relatives of the victims and the victims themselves when they actually fell the victims of the human trafficking when they find themselves in such a very sad and grievous situation. The first thing which has to be done, irrespective whether this person has been already charged or sentenced, or those persons are going through kind of the pre-trial investigation, they have to address the Department of the Drug Trafficking, the National Police of Ukraine, with a statement about this crime. I would like to emphasize the specific issue. What they have to mention such information. It has to contain the maximum detailed description what happened to this specific person since the date of this person leaving the territory of Ukraine. You are talking about the persons who recruited them, whether they tried to deceive or cheated the person about the nature of the work they are going to be offered. Did they tell them immediately that they are going to be used as a drug camels or mules, or they offered them some other jobs? Whether the people let's say when those persons when they they already came to know what they were going to do, were they trying to leave and return back to Ukraine, and whether it's the threat and what kind of threats they came across, how often they were threatened, did they perceive such threats as the natural or the true ones. And again, what I would like to ask you, not to copy word for word statement of some other relatives. It must be your specific story, because national police is going to be very skeptical about the complete replica of those applications or requests. It must contain your specific, your own story. Again, the relatives of the persons who suffered or found themselves in such situation, the relatives must address. If you still have not addressed the consular of Ukraine, the Russian Federation, please do that. Also, I would like to mention here what you can ask or request of the consular. You should not ask to provide you, let's say, the defender or the lawyer or some legal assistance, because the consulate employees do not have such competencies. You can ask to visit such a person in the, let's say, in the camp or in the prison and jail, to make sure they know what's the situation or the circumstances under which this person is kept in held in prison, whether it's properly fed or has specific attention, whatever. So this person has to write the application request in his own hand, asking the Department of Drug Trafficking to recognize himself or herself to be a victim of crime. And they have to sign, to put their own signature, and then send it out. You can put it in the Russian language through your parents or through the lawyers. Anyway, but it must be written by your own hand. Not that the lawyer should not do that in your stead, but the specific victims who suffered such a situation. If such person has been already charged or assessed, sentenced on the territory of the Russian Federation, the parents or relatives can address the Minister of Justice of Ukraine with the let's say claim or request to deal with the necessary steps to return this person back to Ukraine. And speaking about the Russian Federation, our actions are similar to what they have, because in Russian Federation you also have to apply to the investigation department of the Russian Federation. Again, it's desirable for the victim to do that himself or herself, or by the relatives if he or she cannot do that themselves. In this request or this application, it has contained a very detailed description, as the same as I mentioned about the request addressed to our national police, whether there was some kind of the deception or some threats on the part of those who try to recruit them. You can say that if this case is under investigation, you can actually actually refer to a specific number of the case, and of course you can ask the Russian Federation law enforcement bodies to carry out the investigation of this specific case. So again, if they did not apply to the Minister of Justice of Ukraine, you can always address the Consulate of Ukraine in the Russian Federation. As regards to those persons who are still charged but not accused or not sentenced, who are under the pretrial investigation in the territory of the Russian Federation, I kindly ask you, those who suffered themselves and their relatives, by all means, you have to declare to the investigator, and everybody else, that they are victims of the human trafficking cases, that they were deceived, cheated, that they actually encountered these threats, and those people actually perceived those threats as real ones, and they were forced to do something or to move to the territory of the Russian Federation under these threats. Of course, it would be wonderful if such cases could be committed to paper, because if it's a verbal statement and the judge maybe not respond to that, so it's better to have it in writing. So you can always assign in the protocol and put your signature that you mention such and such facts. If such guidelines or instruction, you can find in the social networks on the site of the Ukrainian Helsinki Union on the human rights. Also on this site you can find the let's say the models, or let's say the samples of such applications or requests, and then the rest which you have to send those applications. Now I can give the floor to some of the parents or relatives. First of them is Ms. Beletska with a resounding case. The person who was detained on the territory of the Russian Federation. Very briefly, I'll try to tell you about the history of my son and emphasize such things that he really fell a victim of deception. He was involved in this scheme of human trafficking. For 3 months he was unemployed. He had been employed, and actually he was trying to find some job. I don't know whether he was looking for the job or put some the announcements or requests. But off Kiev, he went through the polygraph, and he was sent kind of one-way trip to Moscow without money or anything else. There he was met by two persons in the car. Inside that car, they took his SIM card and they ruined both the SIM card and his mobile phone. Since that moment, I believe he became a kind of under control of those persons. He took him to the territory was under their control. When my son, several days later, realized what is what, he actually asked those people to set him free and let him go. Of course, he met with the refusal, because when a person goes through the polygraph or some kind of selection by those people who recruited him, they actually make a Xerox the passport, and they know about his relatives, who he lives with, and I understand that he encountered some of these threats on their part. He stayed in that area for 45 days approximately, when he called his fiancée, and told her that he bought the ticket for 16th of December. On the 14th or 15th of December, he was detained. He actually bought the ticket back to Ukraine. Now I can tell you, we know that he is now in the investigation detention center, kind of prison. And my story is based on the story of which was provided by his lawyer, actually his investigation documents. Those documents have been written. I would like to thank members of our Helsinki group of human rights. Specifically, I would like to thank Mariya Tomak. They actually instruct us what we should do next, and also I would like to thank Koval. Otherwise, we would not even know what to do. Also, I myself, organized a group. It's kind of close group on Facebook, which is called Human Trafficking or Victims. The victims are those people who suffered as a result of human trafficking procedures. What I would like to say, the most important, what this group has to do, to unite the parents and to seek for those parents who perhaps today even do not know where their children are held today. This is number one. Naturally, my son is part of the group of the so-called Himprom group. This is kind of the drug trafficking syndicate. They actually involve those people who were deceived. Those are kind of absolutely the people who were deceived. They do not know anybody. They are united some kind of the gang, and this actually falls under Article 210. And this syndicate, Himprom syndicate, they carry the stories on the Russian TV. This kind of indicative group, and actually this syndicate consists of 67 people, and Ukrainian citizens. There are 47 Ukrainian citizens, and they can be sentenced to very lengthy terms of imprisonment. I would like to say that we, mothers and fathers, parents, will never be tired to do something. We are going to knock on all the doors, and we'll try to find all the possible ways in order for our children to make their trip back to their native parts. So we have a big request. Please help us. Please respond to our request. I also would like to say that I myself wrote some requests, and the Grishenka, the first application was sent to the police, to the police, Grishenka, head of the police, to Lutkovsky ombudsman, and to the Minister of the Foreign Affairs. And I would like to say the Minister of Foreign Affairs did not respond in any way to our request. Well, one of their employees who I reached, they said, okay, please please try to overcome this story in a way. So this is the story, and please help us. This is my request coming from my heart. Okay, the floor is given to Vera Volody. Good afternoon. Myself, I would like to first of all to thank all those who actually lend us help and made God bless all them and their families. When we started our efforts, when we started to try to find our children 1 year back, there were two mothers and four, and we united and we actually set up some kind of the parents committee. And we know that this kind of the trouble can knock at any door, and we shouldn't wait until it comes at your door. Also, we wrote almost 100 appeals to all the MMPs of the Verkhovna Rada Ukraine, to SBU, to the National Police, to the President, to the General Prosecutor's Office, all different top echelon officials. And we are blessed that some of them actually responded to our requests and tried to help us in our situation. Also, would like to say when the information was sent from the Helsinki group, now the parents know what to do, because it was very difficult to hear the stories of all the parents, and every day we had to receive up to 15 telephone calls, and they said the very bad stories that their children have never had any bad habits, and the mandatory actually requirement was for an investigation of the cases, but that the children we had never had any bad habits. On a periodic, on a regular basis, we communicate here and we meet in Kiev, and I would like to thank Mariya Tomak. She is really kind of a revolutionary person here, because the national police, when I first applied to the SBU, for example, last year for the first time, there was a kind of the information document. There was a kind of they had a special group who tried to recruit our children. Myself, I repeat, for information about the fact that my son was dead, and I'm blessed that this is not true. And we are not going to trouble the national police any longer. We are going to ask them why nothing is being done or has not been done for the 18 months now, when our children have been detained in different jails or the investigation centers, and there was no request to the investigation offices of the Russian Federation. Actually, they send the requests, and those requests are not considered by the their Russian counterparts. Last week, one of our parents in the metro, they read such advertisement, which, advertisement, but piece of information: do not donate to the people you do not know. This is kind of the warning, and this actually is of concern of anyone. This is a kind of trap, and nobody is insured about such a possibility. Again, there are new advertisements offering the new jobs to our young people. Also, would like to say that our government has certain commitments to fulfill, and we are going to demand that our government, our state, fulfill those commitments. They have to contact their Russian counterparts and do something in order to return our children. I would like to say that there are a lot of people coming not from Kiev but from different regions with a high level of unemployment. There is no job at all, and people are coming. They do not know any truth what is there in store for them in Russia. And sometimes our people we are asked why they did not did not go to Poland or Germany. But my question is, why those young people have to go anywhere from Ukraine? Why the government did not provide them with the possibility to work with a job? Thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody for their hand, their aid, their assistance, and may God bless you. Thank you. We have to finish this briefing because our next briefing is in a minute from now. Thank you very much for coming here. So, colleagues, should you have any questions, you can actually talk to the parents who are the official representatives